Hey guys, we're at the top of Mount Frome, checking out some beautiful flowers and bumblebees. This is the OHM Mountain. It's an electric hardtail running the Bionics D series. It's that super big hub motor. This is a gearless direct drive hub motor. Okay, so what differentiates it from most electric bikes these days is that it offers some regeneration, and that can really help you as you're coasting down the hill, not just to recuperate some battery. It's actually not super efficient that way. But it just slows you down like an electric car, and that's going to save on your disc brakes. Your pads aren't going to wear down quite as quickly, and in case you aren't someone who's near beautiful mountains and hills and stuff, you can actually simulate some of that by dialing up regen. There are 4 levels. It's very unique to the Bionics system. They've been doing it for years, and actually OHM has been an exclusive Bionics partner. They've been around since 2005, so their frames have really been refined over the years. They're using the latest and greatest, including this down tube integrated battery pack. Pretty high capacity on this, 48 volts. That's a bit more efficient in terms of sending and receiving electricity than a 36 volt system. 11.6 amp hours, so we're over 500 watt hours. That's half a kilowatt hour, and I think it's seamless. Like the way this is integrated, sort of seats into that down tube. It is removable, locks to the frame pretty securely. It doesn't rattle a lot. You know, on the way up here, it's been pretty bumpy, to be honest with you. Like, these tires are probably a little bit more full than I need. The suspension fork also, it's air, so it's set up probably a little bit higher PSI than I want. I'm completely open. It does have a compression clicker and rebound at the bottom. So rebound is like how quickly it comes back up to you. I love the way that it's set up, but it is a hard tail. And this comes with a standard 30.9 millimeter seat post. They do sell an upgrade. Body float definitely would like that for this kind of riding, but I wanted to ride it up stock and get the full experience. So for the last half hour we've been climbing, having a lot of fun. Let me show you that battery pack. So insert the key like that, step over to the other side, kind of unlock it, and then it just tips out just like that. Nice, beautiful. Yeah, weighs about 7.4 pounds, and those are the rubber feet I was talking about to reduce any kind of vibration. We've got a couple more rubber pads at the base. This is what the frame looks like without the battery pack. So if you were gonna maybe hang this off the back of a car rack or lift it into the back of your truck or whatever, definitely a good idea to take the battery off. Just don't drop it. I mean, there isn't like a loop handle at the top like Bosch batteries. It does weigh a little bit more, and if you drop this, it gets scratched up or it gets damaged. These are pretty expensive, and it's a little bit custom, but I do appreciate that it's the same battery pack design on all of the OHM bikes. So if you needed a replacement at some point, they all look like this. It's kind of that dark gray, the same dimensions. And I'm gonna go ahead and click it back in, so listen for that. There we go, real satisfying. Wanna make sure that that's locked in before you take off, of course. So from here, you can get an idea of the frame a little bit more. 4 sizes, and I'm on the medium, 18.5. That's the seat tube length. Love that they were able to squeeze in bottle cage bosses and then do this sort of sloped, easier standover. It means you're not gonna have to lift your leg quite so high when you're mounting the bike. You can swing it around the back. It's gonna be a little bit easier on this model compared to some of their others because it doesn't come with those metal fenders or rear rack. Okay, so they have 2 other models right now. It's the Urban and the Sport. And the Urban, it's got narrower tires, a little bit more efficient, and the Sport, bigger tires, and it's something that you could take off-road a little bit, light trail, and it has really nice lights. Both of those bikes actually have lights. This one does not, and it's priced a bit lower, so it's $3,455. This is also the lightest weight model in the lineup because it doesn't have those accessories. Right around 51.1 pounds, again, for the medium-sized frame. And I did reach and standover height and all those other dimensions back at the website, but it's just wonderful that if you're someone who's a little bit shorter or a little bit taller, like the founder of the company, that's Michael, you know, he can actually fit on this bike and feel more comfortable and get that full leg extension and more comfortable reach. They actually outfit this with, this is a 70 millimeter stem, but 80 and 90, so depending on the size that you get, and slightly longer bars. Little upgrades like that all across the bike. Even the crank arms, these are 170 millimeter. These are custom with a hollow spindle bottom bracket, lighter weight. This is sealed cartridge. Same with the headset, tapered 1.125 to 1.5 inches. So it kind of bows out like that, a little bit stronger. Same thing if we come down here to the fork. So this is an air fork, as I mentioned. That's the SR Suntour Radon, 100 millimeters of travel, and it has boost, so it's 110 millimeter hub width with a 15 millimeter through axle that has quick release. This is the kind of stuff that you see more and more on like real mountain bikes that you can take off road, that give you the stiffness and just the support, kind of a wider bracing angle so that the rims maybe don't flex quite as much, given that they've got these huge tires on this 27.5 by 3. This is full size plus size tires. It's going to give you increased traction, a little bit more float so you can just hit obstacles and roll right over them. It kind of smooths out the ride while also helping you stay above and maybe float across softer terrain, whether it's sand or a little bit of snow. It's really popular with e-bikes right now because you don't notice the drag quite as much. Yeah, there's a little bit more weight and maybe a little bit more rolling resistance happening, but it's totally worth it for comfort and then to spread some of the weight of the bike out. And that's something that I really love about this. Not only is it relatively lightweight considering the size of the battery pack and that 8.8 pound motor, but the weight is spread out across the frame really evenly. We were lifting it from right here on the nose of the saddle, and it actually tipped forward rather than backwards. And that's something I'm not used to seeing with hub motor driven electric bikes. I've done a ton of reviews. I'm thinking about like Stromer, for example. Their bikes are more like road bikes and city, kind of an urban look, but it's the same idea. They have a gearless direct drive hub motor. Theirs is encased in aluminum versus this composite plastic, and it's not quite as wide. It does offer regenerative braking. It has that same near silent, smooth takeoff. And the idea is that you have these magnets all around the outside of this disc, and inside there are electromagnetic stators on these like arms going out. And as electricity is sent through, those stators repel, and that gives you drive power. And so there aren't any gears. There's not a lot of rubbing happening. That's what makes it quiet. And then you reverse that setup, and it starts to generate electricity, and that repelling slows you down instead of sending you forward. So by having such a wide diameter here, they're giving you a mechanical advantage, and this motor offers plenty of torque, up to 50 Newton meters, which is outstanding for a hub motor. And you totally feel that, in part because it's so fluid. There's a torque center built into this axle, and this is 12 millimeters. It's kind of a proprietary Bionics axle. So again, we're thinking about like 15 millimeter, 12 millimeter versus the standard 9 millimeter skewers. You don't have quick release back here, but again, that torque sensing, it's fluid. Like as you pedal, it's not waiting. There's no delay. It's just kind of like, whoom, and it ramps right up, and it's really enjoyable. This is one of my favorite systems for sure, with the hub motor setup, and you have throttle operation. So the way that the throttle works, you don't really get it from zero. It's not like you just sit on it and take off. You have to be moving a little bit. I think it's about 1 mile per hour. It's not real fast. You don't have to get it going that fast, but it's a safety feature. So that if someone comes up to the bike and moves it or bumps it, the bike won't take off. That's kind of what Bionics says is safety feature. But once you do get that going, once you actually activate it purposefully and the bike takes off, it's sweet. It takes you up to 20 miles per hour, super quiet, and just, it's fluid is the best way to say it. It doesn't feel like an on-off kind of thing. It's more of a ramp, but it's a very exciting ramp, I guess is how I would describe it. So anyway, the wider diameter on that hub, there's a little bit more air in there, and it spreads out the heat, so it dissipates heat really well. And you might notice that the spokes connect all the way from the rim into the hub. And that's like a normal wheel. Same thing on the front. Spoke comes from the rim all the way into the hub. That's going to give you some flex, and it's just designed more like a traditional bike wheel instead of these really short, stiff spokes. I like that. It's one of the things that Bionics sort of celebrates when you talk to them. I visited their headquarters a while back when they were launching this, and it was like, yeah, we figured it out, because look how narrow that is. It's definitely something unique in the space. And we look at these rims. These are MD40s from Alex, so 40 millimeters instead of 30 on all the other two OHM models right now. A little bit wider so they can support those plus size tires. Again, Schwalbe knobby nick. These have a little bit of reflection going on. The other ones have reflective stripes and the lights and everything, but maybe not quite so necessary on the trail. And then we've got a 38 tooth chainring instead of 48. So the smaller chainring gives you some leverage for climbing. It allows you to spin a little bit faster. And I appreciate that because I like to spin, and this bike is more about climbing. Admittedly, it's more of a cross-country bike, and we took it way up the mountain. We were climbing the whole way, Battery is definitely depleted. I'm down to like 40% or something like that because I was on the highest level of assist, and we were just, passing people respectfully. This is an e-bike, like legal trail. It's kind of like off-highway vehicle situation. It's just like a dirt road, but just a blast getting up here. Pretty efficient. The battery capacity should give you anywhere from like 25 to 70 miles of range, and it all depends on like, are you in the highest level of assist? Are you climbing a mountain? Are you going fast and maybe even using your throttle? Sometimes, your battery's not going to go quite as far in that case. But then, hey, you don't need it going down. You just coast. So it's been a lot of fun, but it all depends on your weight, the terrain, and all that. And this model in particular is maybe not going to be quite as efficient as the urban and sport models just because of those tires. And you do get a little bit of buzzing and, as you would expect. But this is definitely one of my favorites because even the knobs do give you a little bit of like cushion as you're riding around. So coming back to that optional seat post suspension, you don't have to get it from OHM. You can buy your own SR Suntour NCX suspension seat post, a Thud Buster, even a super cheap one on Amazon if you want. But they sell the Body Float, which has a few different spring choices, so you can really dial it in and set it up for your weight. And it just takes out the quick vibrations, and it's a really comfortable setup. I really like that. And then coming back to the rest of the drivetrain, so 38 teeth up front. I should say this is a custom yoke up here, and you can see that there's welding right here. They had to make it wide enough for those tires, and then also cut it in so that the chain ring would fit. There's a lot of custom engineering that's gone on here, and that's part of why it's a little bit more expensive, in addition to the higher end parts, the custom cranks, the custom frame, multiple frame sizes, the custom paint and battery integration, like the whole thing. Even the cabling up here. A lot of electric bikes, it's really messy, especially when you have motor inhibitors, which this one does. So just on the right brake lever, kind of be nice if it had it on both, but on the right brake lever, when you pull it, it sends a signal to stop the motor no matter what, like just kill the motor for safety and start regen. So you can see that on the display. It sort of like lights up and it's like regenerating, which is neat. And these TRP brake levers look like about 3-finger. They do have adjustable reach, tool-free, so you can dial this in and bring the lever in if you're someone who's a little bit smaller. Maybe you got smaller hands or you're wearing gloves trying to stay warm. I haven't seen TRP quite as much, but these Zurich models, they're one of the few that have the motor inhibitor option, and maybe that was one of the limitations. It's only on the right. And then the rotor's 180 millimeter front and rear quad piston. So, you're getting a little bit more power, maybe spreading out some of that heat. And then the rotors have these like black cutouts. So maybe that's another heat dissipation or weight savings type of setup. So I rode up here with Liam, who actually works at OHM. How's it going, man?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's been fun learning from you. And some of what I've learned is mountain bike specific, because you're a downhill guy and
Yep.
You've lived in North Vancouver your whole life, riding these trails, kind of taking me on an adventure. Can you tell me about quad piston versus like dual piston?
Yeah, totally. The quad piston, it has double the piston, so that means double the surface area on the brake, and it just allows more force to be applied to those brake pads that are pushing on the rotors to help you stop.
Yeah,
means less heat is going to build up there as well.
Okay. Yeah, so it's nice to confirm with someone who's like a little bit more experienced in the space. And one of the things that I'd heard about TRP is they're a little bit easier to bleed. Have you bled these like at the shop? And
Yeah, I have bled these. They use a mineral oil inside the systems, so it's a little bit easier on your hands, so you don't have to worry about the mess as much compared to dot fluid. And they do have quite an easy bleed system, dual syringe sort of system.
Sweet, man. I appreciate that. This is a model that they totally like upgraded, sort of like raced out. It still has, the funny thing is, even though it's like upgraded a little bit, a lot of the parts are still the same. So these are the magnesium Welgo pedals with the adjustable pins, so you can get excellent traction. I don't know if you've experienced this, man, but the middle, that spindle is a little higher than the pins, and so sometimes when I'm pedaling, I notice like the ball of my foot's kind of like rocking on that. Maybe I need to raise the pins a little bit.
Yeah, that is something that we've noticed as well. You can raise the pins on them, or if you do find that isn't a problem for you, that is something that can be replaced fairly easily. It's something we're looking into changing in the next year or two.
Well, I love Welgo, and magnesium, it's lightweight. They have another one that's more of a BMX pedal that's like, it's not quite so thin, and that one feels a little better to me. But I didn't really have a problem riding up here. And then I noticed you have this adapter plate. So on the stock model I rode up over there, there's this like cutaway. See this like concave cutaway? That's for their their rack and fender setup. It's like the same frame. You use it across your entire line, but now you have an adapter, so people could use their own like aftermarket racks.
Yeah, totally. All the bikes do come with those adapters in case you do want to use your own racks, your own fenders, all that sort of stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, and the bottle cage bosses and everything like that. I noticed you guys got a narrow wide chain ring on this, and maybe a little bit lighter, or what was the reasoning for that?
Yeah, well, we are based in North Van with quite a few gnarly trails out here, so we put that on there just to make sure we aren't dropping those chains when we're taking them down the trails.
When you might think like dropping the chains, I don't want to drop the chains, but I feel like this is, maybe that's pro level, but this one you've got kind of a chain guide that connects to the seat tube and keeps that on track. That's what that's for, right?
Yeah, exactly. For what most people are going to be using these bikes for, that system is perfectly adequate, but with the gnarly trails here in North Van, we wanted a little bit more protection.
I heard you've taken that thing out and really like pushed it to the limit, is that right?
Yeah, we've done quite a bit of testing with it, testing all sorts of components on it and putting it through its paces just to make sure it's up to snuff for what we're looking for.
Yeah, you've certainly performed well coming up here. And I guess coming back to the rest of the specs, Shimano Dior XT, 10 sprockets in the rear, 11 to 36 tooth, so pretty good spread. Coming back to that 38 tooth, so a little bit smaller, giving you more climbing ability. It's definitely set up more for trails. This is a cross-country bike, but yeah, Shimano Dior XT, I'd say that's mid to high range, especially on e-bikes. Like it's kind of what you see on the higher end bikes, and it does have this one-way clutch. So in the off position, see that gray thing? Push it down, that's the off position. It's supposed to be kind of normal, I guess, like there's a little bit of bounce going on, maybe the shifting is fairly easy, but if you put it in the up position like that, now it's not going to give you quite as much slack, which means you might not drop the chain as easily, and maybe you're not going to ding that chain stay as much, at least from the underside. And you do have a little plastic sticker here so that you're not going to chip up the frame. Did I communicate that all correct? Does that make sense to you, Liam?
Yeah, that's about accurate. Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate the feedback. I noticed you've got SLX triggers up here versus XT, and I don't know if that was a cost savings measure or maybe they just fit better because you've got quite a lot going on here. There's like the TRP brake lever, trigger shifters, and that fancy Bionics control ring. I really love that. Can you speak to SLX versus XT?
Yeah, totally. We do try and use parts that are good and are going to work and are going to last, but again, we're trying to not make the bikes as expensive as possible and save a little bit of money, and that's somewhere where we found the SLX where they're good, but they're not over the top.
Yeah, it's adequate.
Yeah.
It still has two-way shifting, so see that little trigger? You can push it forward like that or pull it back, and then you can do multi-shift, click, click, or click. So up to 3 with the easier shifter, I guess, going to lower gears. So I like that. To me, I don't really know the difference, and it's kind of neat to hear. Do you include the bell with this? Is that stock too?
Bells are included as stock on every bike.
Got to give people the heads up, the friendly heads up. It's a nice bell. And then, of course, the display panel. Love that it's removable, just like the battery pack. So you twist it, you take it off. It almost looks like the same mount you'd see on Garmin devices or something. Mm-hmm. So it's just out of the way. On the other ones, you can even see this has the custom clamp for adding a light below. Can this one be outfitted with like supernova lights if you wanted?
Yeah, totally. That's an optional upgrade that we do offer for these bikes, is they can be wired into the battery as well.
Yeah, some people, frankly, a lot of times for me, I've bought bikes more like this because I wanted the cushion and I go to work, but then on the weekends, I'm like, maybe I want to hit the trails, and get out there. So the fact that you could add your own rack and you wouldn't have to use a beam rack. Like beam racks kind of suck. You lift your bike, you bump it, and now it's like rubbing on your tires and stuff. So being able to connect, here's their proprietary rack setup. So you could potentially put a rear fender on this. Although the tires are just so wide, I think just having a rack would probably be my choice. And then you've got that hardtail setup. I really haven't seen any full suspension Bionics powered electric bikes, and in part because you have increased unsprung weight with that hub motor. That means if there's a rear suspension, it's going to be working harder, and it's just not ideal. You want all the weight on the frame. But with a hardtail setup like this, it's not important. It's okay to have a little bit of weight back there. Liam, I don't want you to hurt yourself, but would you mind kind of like lifting the bike from the center there? Yeah, sure. I want to demonstrate the balance. Yeah, see how it tipped forward a little bit when he first did? I mean, that's a very well-balanced frame. To me, that's very impressive. And it comes with a kickstand. So coming back to use cases here, most electric mountain bikes or like real full suspension mountain bikes that are not electric, they don't have kickstands, but why not? I mean, you can totally take that off. And for the majority of people who are going to maybe use this as a fun trail bike around town, you know, the pedals have no problem passing it unless it's down, and then you get some collision happening. So the crank arm kind of bangs it. You know, that's the case with any mid-mount kickstand. You could put it at the rear, but then you've got all that cabling, and there's a disconnect spot here for the motor. So that's something I think about, like, okay, what's it going to be like to change a flat on a bike like this? Maybe a little bit of extra work, but not a whole lot, because there's that disconnect right there. It's very well thought out, and a lot of these wires are pretty well protected. They seem like they're kept out of the way. So clean. They're integrated right through the frame. They're not just like tacked on everywhere, even at the bottom bracket. So see, there's an extra shield right there, and then the wires come out behind it. So you've got the chain ring hanging lower, even the kickstand protecting it, and then just that little piece of metal. Just refined is the word that comes to mind when I look at this. Ergon saddle, and it's sort of a gel composite, whatever, fancy thing. It's OHM branded, which is cool. And then we've got Ergon grips. They're the flat design versus the ergonomic ones you see on a lot of the other models. I like the ergo ones. They're a little bit fatter, but these give you more control. And if you're wearing cycling gloves and actually doing real mountain biking, it's nice to have, like, I guess, not as fat going on. We've got 3 spacers, 10 millimeter, and then a 5 millimeter on top. Let me just think about, oh yeah, almost forgot. See, there's this other little port. They can wire in a USB adapter. So you got like a little circle thing that sticks onto the side of the frame, and then you could power your phone. And they do have a smartphone app. It's Bluetooth enabled. But between the display panel and this control pad ring that actually has a battery indicator, an assist level indicator, lights, plus, minus, back and forth throttle, like it's all there. You don't even need that display panel, which is cool, because sometimes when you're on really gnarly terrain, you want to like put that in your pocket, keep it out of harm's way. Those are just other little extras, or I guess the way to approach the bike. Liam, is there anything you can think of that maybe you haven't heard me talk about that you can point out in terms of someone who's like a real mountain biker? You have a lot of experience in the space, and something that OHM does differently here.
Well, I think you talked about the boost hub spacing in the front. That's something that we do to let you use any real mountain biking hubs. We also use a tapered head tube, which is 1 1/8 to 1.5 inches, which lets you change out the fork if you need to find some other sort of fork.
Hey there, can we go back over here?
Totally.
See, okay, so this is another area where you guys kind of trick this one out. By the way, they have the body float, and that's what it looks like. They got the springs adjusted just right for Liam's weight. And then this fork, tell me about this.
Yeah, coming back to this, we've put a pike on this one, again, to deal with the heavy use that it's been getting, the beating I've put on it, and that just gives a little bit more grip and traction, as it is quite a high-end fork on there.
Okay, well, that's great. Yeah, it feels like we've gone through most of like the bicycle parts. Talked about the battery. I'm gonna boot this thing up and show you the display. It does take a little bit longer to boot up than I'd like. You hold the power button for a couple seconds, it beeps, and then there's that Bionics. You see that readout? It's almost like a rainbow look to me. It's transflective, so even if you've got bright sunlight shining on it, as we do here, it's still visible. That's great. So like harsh lighting conditions like today, or when we go in the shade, it'll still be visible because it's backlit. The basic readout, the basic display, shows these 4 levels of assist, and as you arrow up with that plus, you get more and more help, but you're going to use the battery faster. You've got speed. Right now it's in kilometers per hour. You can easily switch that. And then they've got a battery infographic with 10 ticks. Thank you, Bionics. So many of the other companies just show you like 4 or 5 ticks. And that's like 20% increments. I mean, versus 10%, I much prefer this precision. And then down here it says odometer. If I push the left or right keys, it cycles through the other menus. So setup's cool. If we hold the white key on this screen, now we get all these different options. So like language, brightness, units, start screen, clock adjust, tire circumference. I'm actually going to change units to miles per hour because I am used to that. There we go. And now we're going to exit. from this screen, if I tap the right key, we can see odometer, trip meter, trip distance, average speed, clock, and then back to setup. Or if I hold the right key, it goes to the advanced display. All it does is show you like, okay, I'm in using power mode with this little arrow, or if I pull the brake levers, now I'm in regen mode. And then there's like a power meter, and it shows regen versus power. It's kind of cool, and I almost feel like they could have just had 2 screens, but this one could be a little bit more distracting with stuff flashing and changing versus the basic, so I get it. And then Michael's favorite screen, if I hold the right key, it's just a grid with a lot of information. It's called data view. So it shows your speed, miles per hour, trip timer, clock, odometer, trip, assist level, average speed, assist percentage, and battery percentage, 42%. I used 68% coming up the trail, and I'm proud of it. We've been riding for like a half hour, right?
Yeah, something.
That's cool. There's the display, and then over here, you probably can't see it, but it sort of lights up and gives you the same information. Just a wonderful setup. The removability feature for me is key, because I don't want to leave my bike outside parked at a rack with the battery and with the display getting scratched up and getting rained on, especially when you spend this kind of money. Bionics has been in business for a long time. They're owned by a big automotive manufacturing company in Toronto, Canada, called the Magna Group. Yeah, I've been to their headquarters. It's pretty cool. And, you know, you get the feeling like they've been around, they're there to stay, they support their stuff really well. They sell internationally. OHM sells to the United States and Canada predominantly. But they have like a 3+ year warranty, and they offer support going back even on their older models. So if you have an older OHM bike with one of the like Bionics PL metal motors, that they worked fine and everything, but it's not quite as powerful or sleek as this, they even do sort of a trade-in program where you can get some discounts on their new bikes. And I just think that's neat. It's a small enough company that they work with you and the support seems great, but they're big enough that they've been around since 2005 and they can offer warranty and support like that, and that gives me some confidence. I think that we've covered just about everything except the little charger. This is like 0.9 pounds, and yet it puts out 3.45 amps, whereas most e-bike chargers put out like 2 amps. The Bosch charger, the premium one, puts out 4. It's a little bit better than that, but that's smaller and lighter. Super compact. Toss it in your backpack, take it to work, and then it plugs into the side of the battery. This is IP67 rated against dust, as we've got here, and water. So in terms of getting this splashed or rained on, it's not a problem. And there's no cap. I was surprised at that. I was like, is that going to be a problem? And they're like, no, it's high, it's relatively clear. It's a minimalist design. I love that. Okay, we can see it a little bit better here in the shade. When you touch the plug where you plug in the charger, it sort of lights up and it tells you how much battery remains. So between 20 and 70% is orange. It turns red when you're below 20%, and if you're above 70%, it's green. So you can tell, even without having that battery mounted to your bike and booting up that screen, whether you need to charge the battery or not. I think that's pretty cool, and it's just another it's just like a delighter for me. It's pretty neat to see those little extras. I think that is everything. We've talked a lot about this bike, and yet it looks so elegant. You know, there's a lot going on, but it's a clean look. It only comes in this one color scheme, kind of a matte green with orange accents, a little bit more like camo, like you're in the woods or something. I'm gonna hop on the bike and just ride on this relatively flat section and try to show you the motor in action and the display and stuff. I'm gonna have to walk the bike forward a little bit. There we go. Kick that kickstand up. Go ahead and power it on again. Powered by Bionics. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm gonna take it all the way up to level 4. And I want you to listen for the motor. It's super quiet, frankly, with the trail noise. Like, you're not going to hear it at all. Of course, visually, you do see it, and people kind of notice, like, oh, electric bike. But it's not as disturbing. Whoa. There we go. It's just super quick and easy. I was up to like 18 miles per hour there. Now we're climbing. And a lot of bounciness here. Super easy. I don't have to get up and out of my saddle. And then once you're up to speed like this, switch off and do the throttle mode. Just power right up this little climb section, no problem. Now the thing is, once you've got speed on this bike, the motor works just fine. It's not gonna have a problem going up this hill. But if I take it super slow, down to like 2 miles per hour, and now I'm doing throttle, see it's struggling a little bit. Takes it a minute, and now we're back up to speed. So I think the real takeaway is, you know, you need a little bit more movement to empower a hub motor, or you need to pedal. So as long as I'm helping a little bit, it doesn't have any problem. But if I stop halfway up a hill, even if it's a paved hill, the conditions are perfect, starting from zero is just not as easy for a hub motor when you're in throttle mode. Compared to a mid-drive, you can shift down to an easier gear, start off, takes right off, but you have to pedal. There's no throttles on a lot of these mid-drives. So frankly, to me, it's like, I like to have the throttle option. It does make this a class 2. That's the default setting, 20 mile per hour throttle assist. They can actually upgrade it and make it a class 3, 28 mile per hour bike, and it's free. They aren't charging you extra or anything. You just ask them for class 3, they put a different sticker on it. I think you have to do that at the time of order, but then they update the software. And for someone who wants to commute, or maybe you live somewhere with these big wide open fields and you just love flying across them at high speed, that's a pretty cool option. I'm set up on class 3 right now, so coming up the hill, I was going like 22 miles per hour in some spots, and that was really cool. So I was on my way back to meet with Liam, and I was asking about walk mode, and it was like, well, I guess you could use the throttle, but that gets going pretty fast. And he said, if you want, you're someone who doesn't want a throttle on this, you want to make it like a class 1, they can turn that into a walk mode button. So it would just go 2 miles per hour. It would help you push this up a steep hill, you know, if you have to get off for a technical section. And that's kind of neat. I've met some older guys who live upstairs, just a couple stairs onto their porch, and they like having walk mode just to help them get it up the stairs. Liam just got his helmet. He's gonna hop on and do a little bit of riding just to show it off. You know, get an idea what this looks like from a third-person perspective. Sweet. Very quiet. Like, there's no ring sound. There's no... Yeah, it's just silent. Now he's gonna do a brake test here. Nice, man. Look good. Check it out, guys. That's where we are on the map, that little blue dot, way out in the middle of nowhere. Apparently we go up a little bit further, there's like a ski hill.
Yeah, we almost reached the base of Grouse Mountain. So, or not the base, the actual ski hill of Grouse Mountain.
Huh. It's cool. We're like on a service road, and I just reset the trip meter. We just turned around. You can see that now this is a little bit brighter because we're in the shade. And, oh yeah, I was going to switch over to data mode. Battery's at 39%. When you use that regen, oh, look at that assist level, it goes to brake. We use regen on the way down just to see how much battery capacity we get. We're doing science here, guys. It's going to be really cool. Yeah, and see when I pull the brake lever, that red arrow comes up. This is brilliant. This is all Liam's idea. You guys can thank Liam. Hey guys, we're just going to go down through the woods a little bit and explore some off-road. This is a trail bike, but just going on more of a, I don't know, what would you call this?
It's a mountain bike.
It's like all mountain, kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah, all mountain. This is pretty cool, right? I did not expect this. My tires are bouncing a little bit, so I'm going to lower the tire pressure, get some more traction. There is a good PSI range on these Schwalbe knobby Nick tires. I'm looking 15 to 35 PSI. So to lower the tire pressure, you can risk pinch flats if it's too low. But I'm pretty light. I'm like 135 pounds. So I'll lower the pressure. I also lowered the shock pressure on the air shock. And Liam was telling me you can add shock oil, and that will decrease the volume of air, so you can lower the pressure a little bit without having to worry about bottoming it out. So there's just some like technical tips that your local shop could help you out with, or you can research more on your own. hear the kickstand rattling around a little bit back there. And I've taken the assist all the way down, so if I make a pedal stroke, it won't throw my balance. Feeling the lower air pressure now. Good. Woo! That was sick. Now look at these tech sections. We're on a mellower trail here. Just awesome seeing some mushrooms and some of these fun tracks built up, ramps, bridges. Awesome. It's amazing what you can do. Even though these are a little bit heavier, we're getting excellent traction with the tires. The balance feels good, even on a hardtail.
Yeah, bud.
That's cool. His dog just runs with him.
Send it.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, awesome.
Hey.
How are you?
Yeah, really well.
Send it.
Cool. Okay, we're not quite at the bottom, but I wanted to do this because there's a bit of uphill section. We're at trip timer 30 minutes and trip meter 2.7 miles. So we're almost at 3 miles. If I hold and go to the data screen now, battery's at, it said 44, but then it jumped down to 42%. So that's like 3% over the course of almost 3 miles, 1% battery increase. However, it might be a bit misleading because I went ahead and arrowed all the way down to the lowest level regen, so it didn't even matter if I was doing the brake or a couple times I was pedaling and actually like fighting the motor. So that was pretty, I'm impressed, 3% just on regen. That's neat. It's cool to see that in real life. Pretty neat. I've had a lot of fun hanging out with you, Liam. I appreciate the time today, getting some expert advice. I think that's about it, for the full write-up on this with all the specs and some pictures and pros and cons and comments and stuff. I will see you guys back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, ride safe. Please be respectful, especially if you unlock this and it's like a class 3 and you're on the trail, you know, we want to, on the way up here, we were asking people like, oh, on your left, you know, and giving them the friendly ring, and everyone was really, it seemed, you know, just like, wow, that's neat, just really positive. It's about having fun. See you guys next time.